Hello, welcome to the Darkroom. My name's Alistair Baird, and today I'd like to talk about cross-processing film, which is something that's becoming of increasing interest to film enthusiasts for the bizarre and slightly unpredictable results it can produce in the colours of the photographs. So what I'll do is to break this down into two parts. The first I'll discuss briefly as to how it's done within a laboratory, and then we'll look at before and after shots that I've taken around the town so that you can see a normal process film and then one that's been cross-processed. So any colour film that you see is composed of dyes. Now initially when the film is exposed it's using silver to record the light, but then subsequently in the developing process those dyes then appear. So that chemistry is a very sensitive and carefully controlled process. So naturally if you put the wrong film through a particular chemistry, you're going to get some unusual results, and that's really what people are looking for. So what I've done is to take some photographs around the town. I've used 120 film because it was easier to switch from colour transparency to the colour negative film without too much bother. And I know you can't see them here very clearly, but we've got a transparency film that's been normally processed, one that's gone through C41, a colour negative film that's been normally processed, and then one that's been put through E6 chemistry. So without further ado, let's go and have a look at the results before and after. Now in the introduction I held up 4 pieces of film, and here are those same bits of film as it would normally be seen on a light box. So on the left hand side we've got transparency film, so this is Provia film. On this side is colour negative film. Now what's important to remember is that the outcome as to whether the film is a positive or a negative image is determined not by the film type but by the process that it goes through. So if you think about the transparencies on this side, where it's been processed normally through a transparency E6 process, then you get that positive result. And although this is taken in early morning, it's a little bit dark, a lot of this image, nevertheless you can see quite clearly it's a positive image. Where that same film has been put through colour negative chemistry instead, you can see it's a negative image. So the sky is dark, the shadows quite light, it has this distinctive clear kind of purplish base instead of the black area here where there's been no light. So where there's no light here it's clear. Now when we look at colour negative film, where it goes through its customary colour negative chemistry, the C41 chemistry, then of course it results in a colour negative. The skies are dark, the shadows are almost clear, and instead it's got this slightly amber looking base, which is an inherent character of that type of film. And on to the right of it here, this colour negative film has gone through transparency process, so you've ended up with a positive result. So the skies are lighter, albeit they've got this slightly orangey tinge that it's picked up from this base colour that's built into the film. The shadows are dark, rather in the same way that over here, transparency, the positive image has been processed normally. Here, you've got a positive image, but you can see that the colours really look quite odd. So we'll go on to look at these particular scenes in more detail and how these negative images in particular look when they've been scanned and then presented on screen as a normal image. So here are those same 4 bits of film. These have now been scanned and some basic corrections added to the colour and the density. Now in each of the sequences that follow I've arranged these in the same way. So at the top half you've got Kodak Portra colour negative film, and on the lower half you've got transparency film. This is the Fuji Provia 100, and on the right hand side of each screen is the results of cross-processing. I don't think it's going to help to talk about which process and which film has gone through which process. It's simply on the right hand side, these are the weird ones, these are the cross-process that we're probably interested in. Now on the colour negative you can see that normal process, you've got a regular looking photograph, and on the right hand side the tones are quite flat. You've got this cast that's in the sky, and generally the colours are quite muted. You could of course, but digitally now, you could have a play with those colours and change, perhaps add some more red to combat this sort of cyan look to the to the grass and the foreground here. And on the transparency film, well, it's characteristically more contrasty than colour negative. You can see these branches here are just a bit crisper, a bit more contrast there. And when it's cross-processed, that contrast is boosted up even more, and then you've got the colours being exaggerated as well. So you can see that there is a bit more contrast, there's a bit less detail, there's less blue in the sky here that there is on the normally processed one. And then you've got this really rather strange looking reds appearing in the shadows. This path has gone quite red. And yeah, the colours are kind of boosted up, so that's really what you'd expect. On this particular scene, I remember to take a digital version, which is quite useful as a benchmark for comparison to the film versions. Now the next three sequence of images, I won't bother giving a commentary. You can make a comparison for yourself by just pausing. The first two were taken in December, so quite a low angle of light, and the third final one was taken in summer in a park in Cheltenham, and that makes a useful comparison for a different time of year. Well, I hope that's allowed you to see those before and afters and get an idea as to what effects you can produce. And there's the thing as to why would you use this type of processing, this variable, to enhance your own photography. If you think about the colour negative that's cross-processed, it tends to produce slightly muted colours, lower contrast. So perhaps you might take a low contrast scene, cross-process a negative film, to kind of exaggerate that look and give it that very kind of oppressive, slightly flat look to the colours. And conversely, the transparency produces more saturated colours. So maybe you'd want to choose a scene that had lots of very bright saturated colours already and let the processing do its thing to exaggerate those colours even more. But at the end of the day, the chances are you're going to be using a digital format. You're going to have those films scanned or do it yourself, and then that allows you to play with those colours a little bit more. But at least the cross-processing gives you some ideas. It's fun to try, and why not give it a go and see how you like the results. Well, thank you for watching. I hope that's been of interest to you. Enjoy your photography, cross-processed or otherwise, and I look forward to seeing you next time.